because it takes time. It takes time. And the earlier that you started, like the more connections you're going to have when that time comes, and, just a better situation you're going to be in when it comes time to actually, take the steps to get out.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. Welcome to episode 46 of the Military Bottom Line podcast. Today on the show, I have Chris Christensen. Chris enlisted in the Marine Corps just after 9/11 and found himself as a disperser. And he got sent over to Iraq and was handed $500,000 in cash and was responsible for that for the duration of his deployment. Chris has pretty cool stories and ultimately used his time in the military where he wasn't sure what was next, but found him taking advantage of the Marine Enlisted Commissioning Program, where he basically got paid to go to school and is now finishing up his 20 years. He's got 2 years left working on that transition and serves to provide a lot of wisdom for both enlisted and officers as he's done them both. As a little bit of a plug, if you guys are listening to this podcast and you're still considering whether or not to join the military and you're talking to a recruiter, just let them know that you've been listening to this podcast, that Jason from Military Bottom Line sent you there, and have them reach out to me, whether it be on Instagram or YouTube, or I'd love to connect with them. Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great, man. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I know I saw you like one simple LinkedIn post, and you were talking about encouraging people to start that transition prep as early as possible. And I'm like, this guy is like speaking my language, and so that one simple post led me to reach out to you, and I'm stoked to hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm grateful that you did. Like, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but so many people wait till the last minute in their career, and it's transition process is not easy. So try to get ahead of it, try to get out there on LinkedIn, build that network and that brand,
Absolutely.
well ahead of time. So just kind of smooth out the transition when the time comes. So
yeah. I know. So you're basically finishing up in 2 years, 3 years, your 20-year career in the Marine Corps. But let's kind of back it up a little bit and hear, how, when, and why you joined the Marine Corps in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was going through high school, like a normal high school student. Not the greatest grades. I was a little bit more focused on other stuff aside from the schoolwork, of course. So, I kind of knew early that college wasn't going to be in the bag for me. It wasn't something I was interested in at the time. And I knew I just didn't want to hang around my town there and just kind of, dwindle away for the next few years. So
where are you from originally?
St. Louis.
St. Louis. Okay.
Yeah. St. Louis, Missouri. Yep. So, so I knew kind of early that I was going to go in, and then, I was sitting in English class, and Tuesday morning on 9/11 happened, and that kind of solidified it for me. I was a junior in high school at the time, and pretty much that next week I went and talked to the recruiter, and kind of, all history from there. I joined the delayed entry program when I was 17. So I was in that for a little bit up until I graduated from high school. So I actually had to get my parents to sign off on the slip saying that I could go and everything. So, I knew kind of early that the military was something that I wanted to do. I guess I wouldn't say I didn't have like direction, but I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I knew that I could either, use the military as a bridge to kind of get me to where I wanted to go, or, make a career out of it. So here I am 18 years later.
Yeah, right on. Was there something, it sounds like, 9/11 was kind of a big initiator, but was there something specific that you hope to achieve or accomplish while you were in the military?
Looking back, like I was pretty naive when I first originally enlisted in the Marine Corps. Back as a 17-year-old, thinking I had everything planned and figured out on how my life was going to go.
Yeah.
So, what I really wanted to do at the time was like go into law enforcement or U.S. Marshals or something along those lines. But so I was going to use, kind of the Marine Corps as a stepping stone to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, completely didn't work out that way. But it's all worked out.
Yeah, right on. So what kind of contract did you sign? Did you is it an open contract? Did you have a job specifically you were looking for?
Yeah, man. So that's a funny one. Yeah, so as I said, I went into the delayed entry program early. Originally, I signed on to be an MP. So I thought I was going to come in, go be an MP. So step back a little bit. Before I was supposed to leave for boot camp as soon as I graduated in June, I think it was.
Yeah.
But I requested with the recruiter to push it back to August so that I could play baseball my final summer there. So, and that kind of led up to this story. I was, I got to MEPS in that August when I was, heading off to boot camp, thinking that I was going in and I had my contract as an MP and everything. But, that day I was shipping out, little did I know, the recruiter didn't tell me when I shifted my date that that MP contract went away. So they pulled me into an office like the day I'm heading out for boot camp, and they're like, "Hey, we need you to pick another MOS." So I'm like, "Whoa!" Completely blindsided.
Yeah,
leaving for boot camp in a couple hours, and so I kind of was like, I don't know. You just go ahead and put me down for something because at this point I'm not sure.
Wow. Yeah.
So I ended up going in open contract, and yeah.
I assume, given 2002 time frame, it was infantry, or what they?
No, it wasn't actually. No. So I went all the way through boot camp, and found out after boot camp that I was going to be a disperser. Actually, so
what the heck is a disperser?
I went into the finance field. Yeah,
no kidding.
Finance.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would not have expected that. That's a pretty fortunate MOS to get via open contract.
Yeah,
I guess it kind of depends on each individual, but finance is a good practice and good skill set to get into.
Yeah, for sure. It had its ups and downs, definitely. But yeah, so I was kind of in the same way though. I was like, what the heck is dispersing?
Yeah.
No clue. But so yeah, that's where I kind of started off my Marine Corps journey was, in the financial world.
Yeah.
In the dispersing sector.
That's funny. I don't think I've ever met anybody that has tried to push back their ship date. Most people are trying to move it up, but if you're an avid baseball player, I can understand that.
Dude, I'm from St. Louis. It's like life around there.
True. I can see the Cardinals banner behind you. Right on. So typical boot camp, MCT, MOS school. Where'd you end up for your first duty station? Kind of like, what is your career looked? Obviously 18 years is a long time to give us a glimpse of, but kind of give us an idea of what your career has provided for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I went through MOS school, financial technician school, Camp Johnson, North Carolina. And then from there, I got orders straight to Camp Lejeune. And this was back in 2004, I guess. I got to my first duty station back in 2004. Fresh into it, didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
And, walking into dispersing, it's a straight, there's no, bones about it. It's like a 9 to 5 office job is pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
So I did that.
I want to talk about that actually a little bit. Because sure. I think a lot of people, when they join the Marine Corps or any branch of the military, they don't think of office jobs. They think of you're always out in the dirt. You're always playing with guns. And
100%.
It's just not really expected that probably 80% of the Marine Corps is sitting in an office,
Yeah.
Did that catch you off guard?
It did. Absolutely, man. I came in also in the height, deployments were just nonstop, dudes deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan, things like that. And then here I am sitting in this office job. It's definitely a different experience and not one that I was really expecting. And like I said, it had its ups and downs. There was, definitely benefits to it.
Sure.
But ultimately it was just something that I didn't see myself doing for 20 years, It had its good parts and its bad parts,
of course,
but like anything.
Was it?
And I can always say the grass is greener, but
that's always true.
Yeah.
because 9/11 was a little bit of a catalyst for you, was it disappointing to find yourself at an office?
It was, man. Yeah. Kind of, back then I was young and, you know, ready to go out and do things, see things. And, so yeah, definitely, especially like I had friends that were deploying, combat experience, all this stuff. And, and there I was in the office. Now I did get to go. I finally got a deployment to Iraq in 2005. Cool. So that was definitely an awesome experience. Even being in that MLS, like learned a ton and, got to see some things that I would have never got to see at that age.
Being a disperser, are you, what kind of role did you partake in, shipping of massive pallets of cash over there for?
Yeah, man, that was
for easing relationships to the locals.
Yeah, it was interesting to say the least. As a corporal, I just got promoted actually when I got into country. I picked up corporal. And, as soon as I got there, they signed over $500,000 in straight cash to me. That was like under my name. Like I had my own little safe and everything. And
$500,000 in cash that you're responsible for.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And they give you like in a duffel bag, or they just say, this is your safe, like guard it with your life.
Yeah, pretty much. And like,
unreal.
I would take different amounts to do different things.
Yeah.
Whether I was paying Marines there at Camp Fallujah or the surrounding areas, I would put 20,000-30,000 in my backpack and jump off on a convoy and like go around and pay dudes. It was unreal. Pretty good experience. Yeah.
So you were the money man. You were like,
for sure.
Anytime locals were upset by something that the Marines were doing, you'd give it to like a platoon sergeant or something like that, or maybe an OIC.
Yeah. So different things. Yeah. So I would, we would pay, I guess they would call them condolence payments to locals. So I think it was once a week we would go to a little fob off of Camp Fallujah, and the locals, like, dude, they would line up from hours and they would come in and it'd be like me and an SJA. And I think an admin guy was in there.
SJA,
and
I assume is
the local
interpreter?
Judge advocate. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Judge advocate in the military. Yeah. And then an interpreter as well. Yeah. But, the Iraqi locals would come in, tell their story. We blew up their car, or we damaged their house, or even unfortunately, like we killed a family member or something like that.
Yeah.
And the judge would kind of make a determination right there on the spot. And then I would determine, based off of what happened and what we did and stuff. So that was interesting as well.
There's only so much evidence, right? I mean, it's kind of like whatever definitely. Their story is. Sure. Here's some money. Wow. Yeah.
And again, like, I don't know the whole legal side of it. I was just there to kind of, hey, here's the payment. This is,
how long did the $500,000 last?
Oh, we got re-upped all the time. So, the reason that I had so much was I would also pay contracts to like crazy amounts of money that I saw like leaving that place. But it was contracts to like shipping companies, construction companies, like local Iraqi companies and stuff. I would go pay like multiple hundreds of $1,000 contracts in one go, just in stacks of hundreds.
Wow. Yeah. So they're not taking credit cards or checks, huh?
No.
Right on.
Not at all. But
okay.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I mean, that was definitely a unique part of the job.
Yeah.
I know things are a little bit different now and how they do things, but
sure.
That was one of the things I really did like about the MLS at the time. Was like deployed MLS was completely different than being back in the rear, back in your like 9-to-5 office job. So
yeah. So did you stay in finance your whole career?
So did my first enlistment. I got married also. Like, so I got to the fleet in March. I was married in July.
Wow.
As a PFC.
High school sweetheart or?
Yeah, high school sweetheart,
right
still married. So we've beaten the odds so far.
Yeah, that's definitely not that's not the norm. If you get married in the first contract, usually it's one of a few.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to, I was, coming towards the end of my first contract. I had gotten back from Iraq. and, didn't really have much to fall back on. So it was like, what now? Like, I've gone through this time, I've kind of wasted literally like 3 years, aside from the deployment, but
why do you feel wasted?
Just because I didn't take advantage of some of the opportunities that, looking back, that I should have, getting myself in good financial situations, taking advantage of educational opportunities like TA, things like that at the time. So I wasted a lot of that time. Honestly, I was too busy, brand new to the Marine Corps, learning the ropes,
having fun on
and then
weekends.
at the same time, having fun on weekends. Yeah, for sure. Had a good group of friends back then that we hung out with. So priorities, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got back from Iraq and, realized, hey, I need to figure it out. Cause like I'm married, I have somebody depending on me. Like, what's the next step? So started taking classes, college classes, actually there on base. Like I would go at lunchtime, take classes
with TA, tuition assistance.
Yeah. With TA.
Awesome.
So, got my foot in the door with taking college classes and realized, don't really have anything to fall back on right now. So I'm going to go ahead and reenlist for another 4 years and kind of see where it takes me. My intent at the time was I wanted to go to Kansas City. I knew that they had a dispersing office out in Kansas City. So it's closer to home. And my kind of with the idea that I would go out there, finish my degree, and then kind of transition from there closer to home and everything. So yeah, I reenlisted with the incentive to go out to Kansas City and got that.
So I just want to clarify for any of the listeners, the incentive. So basically you said, I will reenlist if Kansas City will be my duty station.
Yeah.
And they
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, got to go out to Kansas City, which was awesome. Went out there and I was doing school kind of full time at night. I would go, that was one good thing about, being in the finance MOS. Like it was a pretty set schedule. Like we knew we'd be working 9 to 5. There was no field time, stuff like that in the evenings that would prevent me from going to school.
Yeah.
So went to school at night, ended up getting my associates, and it was very beneficial to go out there.
Cool.
And then kind of from there, like that's where the next step came in, that I was coming to the end of that second enlistment. Had kind of been through school, and I really had to make the decision there. I'm like, is this something that I want to do going forward? Because if I, did another reenlistment, that takes me to 12 years, and it goes quick, man. Like you don't think about it while you're in, but it really does go quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made the decision there. Like dispersing really wasn't something that I wanted to do for 20 years. I did not see myself doing that for 20 years. And I knew if I stayed in, I wanted something with a little bit more responsibility. Like I wanted to be able to make kind of a bigger impact than just me being a sergeant, leading Marines or staff sergeant.
Yeah.
So I made the decision, like, I'll put in a MECEP package and kind of see what happens, which is the Marine Enlisted Commissioning Education Program.
Yeah.
So I took a shot at that, and fortunately I ended up getting it my first time going through. So
cool. And I mean, you kind of knew like that opportunity became more available to you because you first took the opportunity of TA a couple years back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like these opportunities almost like built on one another, where it's like you took advantage and then another door opened. Because if you never started TA, then the MECEP opportunity would never really exist for you, because you have to complete so many courses before you're eligible, right?
So you do now. Back when I was in, we didn't have that requirement.
Okay.
When I try to get accepted to the program, that wasn't really a requirement. So, but it was like one of the factors of getting selected was like, you can prove that you can take college courses and be successful in it.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate. One of my corporals had gone through the program a couple of years prior, and then one of my good friends after that. So I was fortunate enough to know about the program. Like a lot of Marines don't know about the MECEP program, and like, dude, it's a hidden gem of the Marine Corps. Like it was amazing.
Yeah.
But,
So speak, I've had one guest that did it before, but speak on it a little bit again, as far as like, what is the agreement and what's the opportunity exactly?
yeah. So basically what it is the Marine Corps pretty much sent me to be a college student for 3 years. Still time in service. I got paid as my rank at the time. Once I got there, I was a staff sergeant. So I was getting paid as a staff sergeant. And basically my job was to go to school, get my degree. And then upon completing your degree, of course, there's other requirements, OCS, things like that. But upon getting your degree, you get commissioned as a second lieutenant. So
awesome.
It's a great program. Great program.
You got paid full time to go to school full time.
Yeah, man.
And then they gave you a raise when you finished.
And then they gave you a raise. Yeah.
Yeah. Unreal. Did you get to pick your school?
You do. Yeah. So the school has to be affiliated with an NROTC program because that's who you kind of fall under.
Yeah.
Is the Marines that are in charge of that program. So it doesn't have to be directly that NROTC program. It can be a sister school, like in the vicinity of a larger school that has a program.
Okay.
But yeah, you're affiliated with the NROTC while you're there. So like a lot of what happens is the midshipmen that are there going, they're the ones that are going kind of straight into college and then to whatever service to be an officer.
Yeah.
So they'll go through a lot of like the leadership billets and stuff within the command. And your job is like, while you're going through school, is to kind of be a mentor to the midshipmen, provide them guidance and stuff on leadership, things like that. But
cool. And within that, I mean, I know a lot of people that do MECEP, they kind of, because you kind of have to finish your degree in 3 years, right? Like that is, you have 3 years to finish it. So it's a little bit difficult.
It's basically 3 years.
It's a little bit difficult to do some crazy STEM program where, those are like 4 to 5 years. Did you feel like you were limited in your major choices because of that timeline?
Not really. I knew kind of what I wanted to get my degree in, and my associates kind of set me up to where I would be fine, pursuing that degree. I know guys that have pursued, like engineering degrees and stuff within the program. And they were able to do it. Like, of course, they had to work their ass off, but they were able to accomplish it. Like there's no limits to, what degree you can get. So as long as you can make it happen, you can keep the grades, you're good.
Yeah. What program did you end up doing?
So funny enough, I did personal financial management.
No
so,
kidding. Because they took a bunch of credits
a little bit
from
different
your work
than
history?
Not really. So I've always been kind of interested in finance. Marine Corps finance is something completely different than the personal financial management.
Yeah.
Which is,
nobody in the civilian world is going to give you $500,000 to go hand out as part of your financial job.
No.
Yeah.
So my degree is more based off of like financial advising, planning, budgeting, real estate, that type of stuff. So
awesome. Cool. So what does the contrast look like for you from enlisted to officer? I mean, was that as smooth as you hoped it would be? And what does that look like?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't that bad. It's definitely a difference. Like more things fall on you, obviously, as the officer, the one in charge of, whatever it is that you do, whatever MLS, there's a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder as an officer. Like in the enlisted ranks, it was, hey, be here, do this, and you did it. You did your job. You did it well. But basically, I mean, you were told when to be somewhere, what to do, when you were done. A lot of your life was dictated for you. And as an officer, it's kind of, you're the one that is kind of driving that train. So you have a little bit more flexibility in how things get accomplished, but with that flexibility also comes a lot more of the burden of the, the responsibility,
It's funny. One of the sayings is that, like enlisted actually work for a living, but I've had
Yeah,
friends
yeah.
that have done the program, MECEP program. They're like, I worked way harder as an officer than I did as enlisted.
Yeah, man. It's a lot of times a different kind of work, but
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
the workload is definitely not less as an officer. I'll say that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Did you feel, I don't know, I feel like some
right.
people might think of like leaving the enlisted for the officer as like almost like betraying the enlisted, you know? Was there any kind of like, sorry guys, I'm switching over, like I'll see you when I'm your boss on the other side type thing? Or
Not really, man. So my story is kind of night and day because I went from living that, finance 9 to 5 office job to combat arms MLS as an artillery officer. So
oh, interesting.
so it's like night and day from what I did. Yeah. So
Artillery officer.
So I never really had that. Yeah.
So at the end of MECEP, did they just say, okay, you're going to go be an artillery officer, or how did that transition? Did you ask for that?
No. So the way it works is once you get commissioned, you go off to TBS for 6 months. So that's where you receive your MOSs at TBS. There's a couple different ways that they do it. You can have, a flight contract going into TBS, or you can, towards the end of TBS is where they start like racking and stacking individuals and kind of dishing out MOSs from there. So my platoon commander at TBS was an artillery officer.
TBS, remind me what
loved
TBS
that guy.
stands for. Sorry.
The basic school. So
okay.
yeah, that's like the entry level school that all officers go to. Okay. So out of OCS, then you have TBS, and then you go to MOS school, and then you go to the fleet. So
it's a long road.
Yeah, it's a long road, man. But so yeah, that's where. So you can make like recommendations or like a wish list per se of like your top MOSs. Basically, they give you every MOS in the Marine Corps, and you have to rank them from like 1 to 30 or whatever it is. And then from there, I don't know how they do their magic and their draft, but they figure out which MOS to give everybody. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to get my number one choice coming out of there, which was artillery. So
cool. That's quite the contrast going from like office job to, I mean, I guess as an officer, it's still maybe a little bit more office centric, but to the combat arms MOS.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, I had been to the field probably, aside from the Iraq deployment, maybe one time in 7 years as a disperser. And like now I'm in the field constantly as an artillery dude. So yeah.
How would that play out with your family? I mean, they've been very used to you having a pretty cush schedule for 12 years. And then all of a sudden you get thrown into the field like every weekend, how'd you balance that?
It's been difficult. I'm not going to lie. It was, my wife was very used to, life as a disperser for me, a set schedule and things like that. And then, once I became an officer and came into this MOS, it was deployments back to back, field time all the time. Like basically we're rolling. We go to the field, we come back, do maintenance for a week, do prep for a week, and then go back to the field. So it's we do a lot of field time in artillery, and it's definitely been an adjustment, I would say, for the family. My wife, I love her to death. Like she still gives me crap about it. But I mean, she's a trooper, man. Like I said, we've been married my entire time in the Marine Corps. So
that's huge.
Yeah, she's an absolute trooper, strong. Cause we had our kids, we actually had both kids while I was out at MECEP. So really the artillery, me going to the field, back to the field, deployments and stuff, that's all my kids have known really. So, but yeah, the wife and family, super, super strong. And like, without that support system here, like, it'd be impossible to do what I do. Like,
yeah, no doubt. Can't imagine. Huh. So basically you almost like restarted your career in essence as an officer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did it feel that way? Did you feel like you were basically, PFC boot again, trying to figure out how this
Yeah,
all
man.
works? Or
Yeah, definitely. Like once you get commissioned and come back to the fleet, it's like, especially with the transition that I did, like
yeah,
again, from job to job,
yeah,
completely new experience. And again, starting right at the bottom. So like went from being a staff NCO to where, you know, people answering to me and like,
yeah,
you know, actually having some leadership, some Marines under me and stuff. And then bam, back to
yeah,
second lieutenant. You know, starting right at the bottom of those ranks. But,
yeah. What kind
definitely an adjustment.
what kind of advice would you give to somebody that is going from like a, you know, mid-level management back to, I know some people would argue that being a, you know, lieutenant's not the bottom, but it, you know, nobody likes a butter bar. So like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's maybe making that transition?
Dude, you have to like humble yourself, honestly. Like, have to humble yourself, and you have to be willing to take advice, for sure. Because you can't come into a new position, a new role, a new experience thinking that you know everything just based off of your past experiences, because it's not the case.
Yeah.
You know, we transition a lot in the military from job to billet. And if I come in thinking that I know everything, like, that's not going to get you anywhere. So you have to humble yourself. You have to learn quickly, adapt quickly. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing is stay humble, learn your job, get help from those around you. Be willing to grow where you're planted, as they say. So
yeah, I know the culture between ground side and not ground side is pretty different. And so like to go in there and immediately I just envision like all the young enlisted, be like, who's this new butter bar, you know, code guy that's like here and tell us what to do now. I imagine that's a you know, pretty big like, you know, change and you know, you want to earn their trust and their respect without like ruining their life, you know. So,
for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I kind of like to play it kind of close to the chest. So, you know, I don't talk about, you know, being prior enlisted and stuff too often. Unless for whatever reason I have to check in with my uniform on and I got a good conduct, and dudes really don't know. So, and I was fortunate as soon as I got to the fleet as an artillery officer, like I went straight into, to be a fire support officer for a company, an infantry company over with 2-8. So, it was still just a small team that I was in charge of. And, you know, it was an interesting time. But
so explain what a fire support officer is a little bit.
Yeah. So, I'll back up just a little bit. So in artillery, there's like multiple avenues that you can go. You can be a fire support officer, which is, they are in charge of, they're basically the eyes. So they're in charge of the observers that are your eyes for artillery. So they're the ones that are up on the hill, you know, calling in artillery. So as a fire support officer, you're in charge of those guys.
Gotcha.
And the way that it works is they'll attach you to an infantry company. So in my case, I was attached to weapons company, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, for my FSO time. So, and then other routes that you can go, if you go straight into like artillery battalion life, they'll send you to a battery. And from there, I mean, you can be fire direction officer, platoon commander in a battery, up to an XO of a battery. So,
gotcha.
So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that you can go as a lieutenant in artillery.
Were you happy with where you ended up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Man. That's what I wanted to do as an artillery officer.
Cool.
I've always enjoyed the fire support aspect of it. Because there's a big difference between like fire support or gunnery. Big difference.
Gotcha.
So I enjoyed it. Usually they'll try to send you to both as an artillery, like lieutenant. So you'll do some time as an FSO, and then you'll also do time in a battery, you know, getting that experience as well.
Did TBS teach you what these differences were, or like how did you know? Because I mean, I know nothing about artillery, so it's like if somebody were to tell me to pick a job out of these three, I'd be like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. So how did you have this baseline understanding?
So short answer, no, TBS did not distinguish those differences really. TBS is like a shotgun blast of, they'll give you a glimpse of this MOS, a glimpse of this MOS, a glimpse of this MOS.
Yeah.
You don't really know those distinct differences until we get to artillery school, which is another 6-month school.
Wow.
And, at that school, that's where they do, it's basically 2 courses. So you have a fire support course and gunnery course, all in one school. So you're learning the entirety of artillery. So it's definitely a difficult school. It's not an easy school. But that's where you kind of learn the differences. And then once you actually get to your battalion, that's kind of where they put you in whatever billet is available at the time.
Gotcha. And you just made me think when you said that's another 6-month school. I mean, that is between MECEP, OCS, TBS, artillery school. I mean, that's like what, 5-6 years of schooling.
Yeah. So so just stepping back, I got accepted to the program in December of 2009. I want to say I was slated to go to college in August of 2010. So finished up kind of at my duty station. They send me to a MECEP prep school, which they don't do anymore. So that school was, I think, 2 months long, the summer leading up to college.
And it's just like learn how to be a student again, or what?
Yeah. It was a pretty cool school, actually. I was out in Quantico, Virginia, and it was a bunch of like retired lieutenant colonels and stuff that were the professors, and they would teach actual college courses, and it was just kind of a prep to get your mind into taking college courses. Is basically what it was. So I went to that, then went to school for 3 years, and during that time is when I went to OCS. Again, it's different now. Now you go to OCS prior to going to college in the program. But and then commissioned in 2013 of May, went to TBS from August to February of 14. Went to 6 months of artillery school during 2014. And then finally got to the fleet in like October of 14. So
it's just crazy.
It's a long process.
It is a long process, and it's almost like, dude, you could be a doctor by now. But I think I think what a lot of people might miss about it is that you're accumulating time in service that entire time. You're still building that career. You're getting paid, so it's not like you're putting life on hold to go to school. That is life. No. That is your career, and I think that's one of the most like incredible opportunities to be able to continue your career and continue getting paid like good money to pursue education.
I pushed it on a lot of dudes. Like it's something that I wouldn't be where I am right now without this program. Like I said, it's a hidden gem. And, if Marines are even vaguely considering it, like I highly, highly suggest it. And I try to get them on the right track to set themselves up to where they can pursue that option if they want it. So,
yeah. And now you're 2 years out from retirement. Are you looking for 20 years in one day to retire, or how eager are you?
Pretty much. I think that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I've been in this for a while now, and so I'll say as in the officer ranks, like once you get to like major and stuff, like jobs don't get great, honestly. Like it's a grind a lot, doing a lot of the administrative work, the field grade jobs.
Yeah.
So really the captain time is like the highlight of it. Before you start getting into more staff billets and stuff. So I'm at that point, like, I got 2 more years left, and, I'm ready to kind of see what's out there in the real world after this. So
yeah. And I know you're trying to encourage people to start preparing for that transition early. So like, as you're living those steps right now, I mean, what kind of steps are you taking to start that transition 2 years out?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a lot, as you know.
Yeah.
The transition process is not easy. It's really not. And I would say that the TRS, while it is great, it's I don't know if it does enough. I haven't gone through it personally, but just from people that I've talked to and stuff, I don't know if it does enough in the short amount of time, leading up to it that most Marines tend to go to TRS, which is the Transition Readiness Seminar. So it was stressed to me, like, start early. And I know, I'm in artillery. That doesn't transition well to the civilian world. Like, there's no places to shoot cannons out in the civilian world. So I knew I had to get ahead of it. So I started attending webinars actually through LinkedIn. I was on there, saw a webinar through USO Transitions. And it was a mastering LinkedIn webinar. And it was, it kind of opened my eyes to, like, hey, like, the networking process, the building your personal brand, like, that stuff needs to start early. Because it takes time. It takes time. And the earlier that you start it, like, the more connections you're going to have when that time comes, and, just the better situation you're going to be in when it comes time to actually, take the steps to get out.
Yeah. You mentioned personal brand, and I think that, that's kind of like a newer concept to me. And, it took me a while to, like, what the heck is a personal brand? From your perspective and, your experience as you're trying to develop that, like, what is a personal brand, and why should somebody be maybe focusing on it?
Yeah. So I'm still new to the process as well, man. So I'm still learning the ropes with it. But to me, like, building a personal brand. So I want to, right now, my intent is to transition into the financial sector somewhere.
Okay.
So for me, building that brand is, building kind of credibility around my knowledge of the financial world. Basically, building your personal brand is how others perceive you. Like, whatever it is, like, if you're into, I don't know, mechanics, data, whatever it is, it's like building how others perceive, your ability to do whatever it is that you do. So,
well said. I would have done it differently, because, like, I know what I know, like, what it is and what I need to do it, but I wouldn't know how to explain it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm still new to it. But it's definitely something I'm trying to start early, learn as much about as possible.
Yeah.
So
good deal. I like to, kind of, like, wrap it up with a lot of the similar questions to give people, some kind of baseline of understanding of just, like, military concept as a whole. And I know, like, throughout your 20 years, I'm sure you've gone a lot of places. And so I'm always curious, favorite place that the military sent you versus least favorite place.
Yeah. And, I got to say something, like, before I get into that part. I was going back through your podcast, and a couple months ago, you actually had one of my Marines from one of my old units on. Yeah. Jordan DeLizo, who was amazing Marine, dude. I love him.
Yeah. Dude, I love that guy, man. He was, super down to earth. That is that. And this is a really good representation of, like, how small the military is, and how quickly you come across somebody that you already know. And so, like, maintaining those relationships and networks is awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Man. And like I said, I just came across him, and it brought it to my mind because we did a deployment to Afghanistan together, and it was, I love that guy, man. So he's awesome. So I would definitely say that was one of the highlights of my time in right now, is that deployment and the camaraderie that we built within that team at the time. So, but yeah, like you said, man, Marine Corps sent me a lot of places. I was fortunate enough to do some pretty awesome deployments, as far as, like, Black Sea Rotational Force, which was all over Europe. Multiple times I did that. So cool. I've been to Norway, Latvia, Bulgaria, Romania, like, all these awesome countries. But I would say probably Norway tops the list. Like, I love that country. But,
I've heard great things. I mean, obviously it's a very photogenic country, but
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I haven't been yet, so I'll put it on the bucket list. What would you say for least favorite, whether it be a duty station or a deployment?
Oh man, least favorite. So I loved the Quantico area, but I would never live there because of the traffic, man. Like it's awful up there. But so I'd probably say that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I've been places that were not great. You know, Kuwait. I would never want to go back to Kuwait for any reason. But
yeah.
So yeah.
Right on. Okay. What about to show the spectrum of days? Because a lot of people when joining, they're like, what's a good day versus a bad day? And you're always gonna have bad days no matter what job you're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, what does that spectrum look like? What's a highlight day that you're like, man, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this, versus like, gosh, like they don't pay me enough to do this.
Yeah. Again, I've been fortunate to do some pretty cool things in the military, whether that's like JTAC, Coxswain's course, deployments, getting to travel, like again, back to the BSERF deployments, like getting paid pretty much to travel around Europe to see these different locations and work with foreign militaries. Like that was unbelievable experience. So yeah, definitely some cool places, some cool schools that I got to do. Definitely the highlights. And then the people, honestly, like dude, working with some of the best people ever in the military. And that's been a constant, like throughout 18 years, like the people have been amazing to work next to. Like, and then I would say like some of the bad days, I mean, of course the deployment times being away, things like that. But, and then honestly, like just the daily grind of just like the monotony sometimes when we're in these cycles that you're not really working up towards a deployment, like it can get pretty monotonous.
That's really interesting. Cause I like the military for the inevitable change that it offers, your job, like you do one thing one day and another thing the other day, and like on a macro scale, but on a micro scale, there is still a lot of monotony, that can definitely get under your skin. But I think it still offers a lot more change than, a typical career that I've seen at least. But
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's a big difference too. Like I said, if you're in an actual workup cycle for something, it's a big difference than typical garrison life where you're just doing admin work and things like that. So
waiting for that next workup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Do you have any, closing wisdom that you give to, either an enlisted or an officer that's kind of pursuing and maybe starting out their career?
Man, words of wisdoms. I would say the biggest thing is take control of your own career. Like nobody's going to look out for you like you're going to look out for yourself. Yeah. So whether that's, getting to the courses that you want to get to, getting to the duty stations that you want to get to, like bust your ass, like be a good dude or dudette and and fight for it. Fight to get to where you want to go, fight to get to the courses that you want to get to. And like I said, just take charge of your own career, because you got to look out for yourself. Take advantage of the opportunities and take charge of your own career. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier today, actually, that like, while people steered you in the direction of MECEP and like maybe TA, they didn't sign you up for it. Like they just said, hey, this is a great opportunity. And then you did all the legwork to make it happen, so don't you shouldn't even expect somebody to tell you about the great opportunities. You have to go find them and make it happen. So, if you want something unique, then you have to go find it and look for it and make it happen. So yeah, absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I wish you the best in these last 2 years, and hopefully you find yourself exactly where you want after the transition, because I know it's going to be a wild ride for you. It will be. Yeah, I got a lot of work ahead, but looking forward to it. And I definitely appreciate you having me out here and kind of what you do for, those looking to get into the military. So absolutely pleasure being here. Thank you for having me, for sure. Thanks so much, man. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Chris. Like I said, he's kind of been through it all, from the desk job to the combat MOS, and he's really enjoyed his career thus far and taken advantage of every opportunity that he's come across.
And so I hope that serves as an example and an inspiration for you to find those opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you guys next week.